All right, so our read aloud today from our book Soup is Chapter 5, Cheating Mr. Diskin. There's the picture there, the boys. Uh, I don't think we ought to do it, Soup. We don't have to do it every time, Rob, but let's do it just this once. Well, I'm against it. How come you're against it all of a sudden? Didn't Allie Tidwell get away with it? He said he did. Maybe he was lying. Allie don't lie, said Soup. Yes, he does. Name one. Well, he told me he caught a 10-pound catfish in Lake Champlain, and then a week after, his pa said it didn't even weigh 6. Okay, said Soup. So Allie fibbed a bit about the catfish. Don't mean he lies all the time. I never said he did, Soup. Then why don't we try it once? Just once, I said. Just once, Rob. Okay, I'm game. I figured the whole trick, okay, I'm game. I figured the whole trick is to find the right stone. Here's one, I said. Too small, said Soup. That old pebble won't weigh enough to make any difference. We got to get the price up to 20 cents at least, or it'll be one heck of a long trip into town for nothing. You're right, I said to Soup. If our tin foil brings only 18 cents, we can't both go to the picture show. As we walked into town, Soup and I were silent for a while. The very thought of missing the double feature was a Saturday afternoon tragedy. We both knew what was playing and had known for a week. The first movie was Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy that had a gorilla and a piano in it. We'd seen the previews of coming attractions on the Saturday before. The second feature was a cowboy movie with Dick Foran, the singing cowboy. Only in the movie he wasn't Dick Foran. He was a cowboy named Chip. Neither Soup nor I could have missed seeing the double bill of the day. To miss seeing those two shows would have been next to heartbreak. We just had to have 20 cents, as each ticket was a dime. We better hurry, Soup. We have to walk all the way to Mr. Diskin's and get our money, and then all the way back to the movie theater. We need a stone, said Soup. It's wrong, Soup. Let's not do it. We could miss the show if we don't. You win. We'll do it. But I don't feel right about it. Soup, the only reason I'll go along is that we need 20 cents. Why in the heck didn't we ask Mama for a couple of pennies? We should have, said Soup, but it's too late now. We're almost to Diskin's junkyard. Almost. He's a Jew, said Soup. Who? Old Mr. Diskin is. I heard somebody say so. Who told you? I know who it was. It was the man who told Allie Tidwell that it was all right to put a stone in the middle of a ball of tin foil to cheat old Diskin, because it wasn't really so bad to cheat a Jew. Now, pausing real quick here. This is the 1920s. There's a lot of racism that's happening during this time period, and when we think of racism, a lot of times we think of it directed towards African American people, of course, but it wasn't just African American people. In this case, a Jewish man. People are totally okay with being mean to this person just because he happens to be Jewish, or in this case, cheating him out of some money. So again, it's not right. It certainly isn't. But this is just kind of how these kids were raised, and they don't know any better because the adults are telling them that it's okay, so they're just assuming that it is. So it wasn't really so bad to cheat a Jew. It's bad to cheat anybody. If we had 20 cents worth of tinfoil soup, I wouldn't do this. Neither would I, but I heard that guy say there was no such thing as a good Jew. Maybe not, I said. But if there was a good Jew, it sure would be Mr. Diskin. He's the only Jew I know, and he's been great to us. Yeah, he has, said Soup, letting out a sigh. Hey, here's a stone that's just the right size. How can you tell? It's small, but it's heavy. Here, heft it. I hefted the pebble in my hand. It wasn't a very big stone, so I figured we really weren't cheating Mr. Diskin out of more than a penny or two. I'll do it, said Soup. We unrolled our ball of tinfoil, planted the pebble inside the very core, and wrapped layer upon layer of shiny tinfoil so it resumed its original appearance of a small cabbage. 10 minutes later, Soup and I ran through the gate that was under the sign, Diskin's Junkyard. Mr. Diskin saw us coming and got out of his rocking chair. He was smiling, just like he always did. Deep inside my stomach there was a small hard place, as if I had hid the stone inside my soul. I hated the whole business so bad I wanted to turn and run, but instead I handed the ball of tinfoil to Mr. Diskin. I noticed his hands as they took the ball out of mine. His hands were old and white and seemed to be more like claws. He put the ball of tinfoil on the old red scales that he weighed things on, and while the scales were balancing, he did his little trick, the one he always did. Pulling an old handkerchief from his pant pocket, he held it over his eyes. He pretended he was Justice, blindfolded with the scales. He always did it, and we always laughed. It was so absurd that it was funny, because it was Mr. Diskin's way of telling us that he was honest and that he gave everybody an equal price. Soup and I both liked Mr. Diskin. We liked anyone who enjoyed a chuckle or two. He never talked. Mr. Diskin never said a word, just took your stuff and weighed it up on the balance and then paid you the 10 cents. Seems like he always knew that kids wanted a dime for the Saturday movies. Soup and I held our breath. Mr. Diskin took our ball of tinfoil out of the balance and shuffled inside his old shack to get his money. That's where he kept his supply of dimes, but we didn't know exactly where. He must have had 1,000 dimes back inside the darkness. He was gone longer than usual. It seemed to Soup and me that he was inside for almost a year. Then he came out. But on this day, he wasn't smiling. We held out our eager hands for the money. Inside my sneaker, my toes were moving around a lot. That was because I was looking at my feet. I didn't want to look at Mr. Diskin, and when I finally did look at his old face, he wasn't smiling. Mr. Diskin handed us 3 things, 2 dimes, and a stone. It was the stone that Soup and I had hid in our ball of tin foil. "Thank you, Mr. Diskin," said Soup. "We're sorry about the stone," I said. Looking at Mr. Diskin, I expected to see tears roll down his face or see him use his old hanky to wipe his cheeks, but he didn't cry. He just stood there looking at the little stone and moving his head back and forth a tiny bit as if his old hat was saying no. On the way to the movies, Soup said, "I never felt as bad as I do right now in my whole life." "Neither do I said. "I feel like a hunk of dirt." "Me too," said Soup. So, that is the end of chapter 5. So I guess in this story here, we can kind of look at they were told, oh, it's okay to cheat people who are Jewish because they're bad people. There's no such thing as a good Jew, right? So they did a bad thing. They cheated this person because they wanted the money. And then in the end, the more honorable person was actually Mr. Diskin, who knew that they had cheated, but he also knew that they wanted the dimes to go to the movies. And so even though he was sad about it, he still gave them the money just to so that they could go to the movies, which shows who the actual good person was in this situation, right? Okay, anyway, I hope you enjoyed this chapter. Chapter 6 will be next, and I'll see you guys later.